Hello, welcome, hey paisanos. It's me, Hamish, and welcome to a Super Mario moment. It's my honor to guide us through a mega marathon of Mario morsels from the Nintendo universe. Hopefully, eventually, getting to every single game, episode, comic, merchandise, spin-off, crossover. Obviously, that's a mega feat to undertake, which is why each week I'll have a different guest, be they a fanatic, a creative, someone who's never played the games, and maybe one day I'll subject someone to both Mario movies who doesn't know a single thing about this universe, but who can say? And for episode 1-1, I thought there'd be no better person to get than the Mario to my Sonic, the Mario to my Luigi. I was getting confused because I actually have two Marios, two bigger brothers. I'm the Luigi. Although I think when we were kids, I mostly played Yoshi or a Shy Guy or one of the NPCs. I'm getting off track. I have, of course, joined by someone who I would not be bros without. I'm talking to Harry, Steele. Hooray!
Me, Harry-O. Yep,
it's Mario.
My username on Switch, and now Switch 2, of course, is Super Harry-O, because I've got a very long history with the Mario franchise, and I always felt it kind of mean how the two Mario brothers. There's one brother who's not with us today, Rory, who I co-host a podcast, Games on Film, with. And then there was no third Mario brother yet.
No, I'm Toad, I'm Yoshi, I'm Peach, I'm whatever's left. And yes, you mentioned Games on Film. I've been a guest many times, usually talking about Pokemon, though I did come on to do your live episode about the recent Super Mario Brothers movie, which I'm sure we'll get to in our own way one day. And as well as a podcaster, you're a writer and a playwright and a filmmaker.
Yeah, I dipped my toe like decades ago, but yes, I think my most recent claim to internet fame was 150 episodes where he celebrated movies based on video games. He's currently on hiatus because the aforementioned Rory is currently in Australia, but we may be coming back sooner or later. And I think probably, hopefully, by the time the Super Mario Brothers movie 2 comes out.
Yeah, let's just hope that Australia gets internet before then, and then you can start your podcast again. That's a joke. I'm married to an Australian. I have lots of Australian friends. I want to talk about your history with Super Mario. And the main reason, other than obviously you're my brother, but the main reason to have you on first is that I'm sure your history of Mario overlaps a lot with mine. So I would like to know, because it was probably before I was born.
Yeah. I have to think about the before times.
When did you first become aware of our beautiful mustachioed mascot?
Well, yeah, I was thinking about this earlier today because, yes, I don't have many memories before you were born. I mean, life just wasn't worth living until Hamish.
I've always theorized that when I'm not in the room, everyone is just like reading their lines and waiting for me to walk in.
Well, just non-playable characters sort of sliding into walls, waiting to load. But I think my earliest memory, one of those things where a lot of my friends, this is like Britain in the late 80s, really, and a lot of my friends were having things like a Bomb Jack and Spectrums and things like that. And I remember the Nintendo Entertainment System came on the scene. And actually, I think I should prefix for like all your international listeners as well, of which you already have millions. It's very weird talking about early video game stuff from a British perspective, because I think we would get stuff much later than America, and America gets stuff much later from Japan. So I haven't bothered to look up the dates, but I'm sure by the time Britain got, Mario Brothers, wow, color, what's this I'm seeing? Blue and greens and reds? Gosh. I'm sure Japan had already got Mario Brothers 3. And I think by the time we got Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario World was probably a couple of years old. But I remember it being a joint birthday present, Rory and I. He's 2 years younger than me, but his birthday is 10 days before. That really messed with my brain hole. I didn't understand how his birthday came first every bloody year. But that was the joint birthday present to end all joint birthday presents. And I remember saying to our mum, like, gosh, thank you for getting us this. Gosh, it must have cost like £100. And yes, I think it was £99. Which I don't know what that is in terms of 2025 dollar pounds or whatever you want to call it. We'll be talking about
you could almost buy Super Mario Kart for that amount now.
Pretty much, yeah. But packed in it was the classic combo of violent gunplay with Duck Hunt, and on the same cartridge, Super Mario Brothers. Do we say brothers or bros? Because I always thought bros.
I say brothers, but just as a heads up for all the viewers and listeners, we're British. I say Mario, I say Yoshi, I don't say Mario, I don't say Yoshi. I say Lakitu, not Lakitu, which I've recently discovered. But
you say War Luigi, the warlord of all EGs.
This is just what happens when your video game franchise doesn't have any voice acting for the first 10 years of it.
I had a total brain fart the other day. I couldn't work out what Waluigi. I didn't know. I was playing as Waluigi, and I'm like, what is his name again? He's got an upside down L on his hat. What is his name? Really,
I find it very interesting. We're definitely part of the generation, because even though we didn't necessarily play the arcade games first, and the UK was a few years behind, I still think of us as like Gen 1 Mario fans, because growing up, I think we basically played Mario Brothers 1, 2, 3 on loop. And I think we did get the Super Nintendo a little late, and then I remember we sold that pretty quickly to get the Nintendo 64. So we kind of went through all of the stages, even if it was a little late. And
very British. Lots of apologizing.
Yes.
Sorry for squishing you, Goomba. I do apologize.
Yeah, we got the English translations in which Princess Peach is an absolute monarch, and
Toad would be like, the princess in the another castle. Sorry. Sorry.
I also think that I just to briefly mention Waluigi, I think it's funny talking to some Mario fans who've just always known Waluigi, but Wario and Waluigi are a pair, because I remember his addition to the franchise was one of the first spin-off games doing a weird swing like that, whereas now we're just kind of used to baby Dr. Rosalina and dry Birdo and whatever they stick in new games.
At time of recording, the current Mario controversy is how Pauline features in Donkey Kong Bonanza, and she's 13, and that messes up the timeline. While also concurrently, Mario's driving around with a baby version of himself.
I'm sure the Mario timeline is something we will definitely address in a future episode.
I'm hoping there's going to be a film where Mario has sex with his mom and creates his young version of himself. That's definitely going to happen.
You heard it here first. Harry is excited for the movie where Mario has sex with his mum. Super Mario Oedipus, maybe. Let's talk a little bit about Mario Kart in general, because today our game of the week is Mario Kart World, which we'll talk at length in a minute. But in terms of Mario Kart, my memory is that we kind of skipped it on the Super Nintendo. I don't remember us owning it first time round. Mario Kart 64 was definitely the one for us.
As you say, I think, we got a SNES really late and then left quite quickly. So my main interaction with Mario Kart, I had a friend called Susie who lived around the corner from me. We used to live in London, and her and her big sister had a Super Nintendo. And side note, I accidentally completely deleted her big sister's Super Mario World completed save file by mistake, and I still remember it today.
I once handed our mum my Game Boy for 30 seconds in the back of the car, and in that time she deleted my file in Donkey Kong Land. And to this day, I don't know how she had to go through so many menus to do that.
Donkey Kong Land wasn't even in the Game Boy, but how did that get in there? I think it's also very difficult to remember. If you go back and look at some magazines of the time, Nintendo official magazine, they were like, can Mario exist outside of platforming? I mean, he was an umpire in tennis, like a driving game with Nintendo characters in it. And now it just seems like the most obvious thing ever. But it was
Nintendo liked to develop gameplay first, and then I think there's multiple examples of them saying, just put Mario in it, then it will sell. I think that's true of karts, and it's true of Smash Brothers, definitely. It's one of the reasons I think I'm quite impressed that Splatoon exists, and it wasn't just like Mario Paintball, which I'm pretty sure it must have been developed as briefly, at least.
He's hiding in the code somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, people are still cracking mysteries from Mario 64 to this day, and you just don't know, do you?
Well, Mario Kart 64, I remember being our main Mario Kart, and it's interesting because now when I sort of see fandoms do tier rankings, it pretty much ranks at the bottom for most people. It only ever seems to beat the kind of 2D ones, Super Circuit and Super. And I guess that makes sense when I start really thinking about all the games. But just in my head, there's still that part of me that, to me, it's the pinnacle, or it's the one to beat.
I think, sadly, even though you're 6 years younger than me, that's kind of an age thing, because if you go back and play it, it is kind of borderline unplayable. If you try Choco Mountain and things, it is really hard to play. I mean, I would get around it. And again, another thing about being a British video game fan is that for the earlier generations, our frame rates was like doubly poor. I think we had letterboxed because our TVs couldn't cope with the resolutions. The Super Nintendo was really bad at this. It's really only now with the Nintendo online service that they have, which still is emulation and still is imperfect. It's only now we kind of play them how we should be able to play them as British people, with our scraggly teeth and our pork pies and things, dipping our pork pies into gravy. But
we would power Mario Kart with the water wheel out by our little paddock. Yeah, I think Mario Kart 64 is absolutely aged badly and everything. But one of the reasons I think I've responded so well to Mario Kart World is that it taps into the thing I enjoyed most about Mario Kart 64, which was, compared to later titles, it really let you explore to your heart's content in terms of time trial mode. And I know that's just driving around Peach's Castle, which I could do in a better game also. But for some reason, I think that, and like the green thwomp behind the grating, there was this thing about Mario Kart 64 which elicited imagination. And I do think in old games, you had to use a bit of your imagination to fill in the gaps. And where I'm leading to is I'd love to talk just for a moment about Space Kart.
Yes, God, this is like the nichest conversation which has ever taken place on a podcast. But Space Kart, I was really into science fiction, and I'd always just pretend I saw like Wario had pointed ears, and I was just like, maybe he's a Romulan from Star Trek. And then from that spun out, and I imagined like every course had sort of a sci-fi comparisons. So the desert level with the train, what was that called? I can't remember. I should have done my research, but I said that was on Tatooine, which is famous for trains all the rage in Tatooine in Star Wars. You wanted to go to Toshi stations to sort of press some pennies on the train tracks or something. But I just created this whole science fiction narrative where every character. Like Mario's part of like the Earth Defense Force, and the uniform, I suppose, for the Earth Defense Force was dungarees because Luigi was part of that as well. And that progressed to like the next couple of games where I think I remember saying Daisy Liner, the ship, which I think was in the GameCube version, Double Dash. I said, "Oh, that's Floston Paradise," and I remember you saying, "What's Floston Paradise?" And I said, "I'm going to show you the Fifth Element," and I think your life was changed forever. So
Pippolai.
I think sometimes with video games, as you say, using your imagination and being young and maybe having fewer games. I think most people of our age now have got so many eShop purchases, or we've got a whole pile of unplayed indie games. Back in the day, 25 years ago or something, you would just have one game for a while and milk that to its fullest extent.
Yeah, I have very vivid memories of playing Mario Kart 64 and asking, can we play Space Kart? And that just being kind of an exercise of both playing a game, but playing, doing imagination play as well.
It'd be great to hear if any of your listeners, viewers did that with any other games. I think it'd be really cute.
Yeah, we might find out that we weren't so strange after all. This is a great way to start talking about Mario Kart World, because if Mario Kart World had existed when I was a child, I would have shot straight up to Pluto with excitement. And
presuming Pluto is up and not
yes,
at the southern hemisphere.
And I think we'll be we're open to talk about the whole thing. It's warts and all, although water's not in the game, much to my fury. And yeah, I'd love to talk about Mario Kart World. So can we begin by talking about what your first impressions were of the game when just the trailer came out?
It's
like,
really
were you excited?
It's really hard to think about the initial reaction to Mario Kart World without thinking about that flipping cow. Because again, presuming someone will be watching this in weeks, months, years to come, as we talk, the game hasn't been out for a full month yet. The first time we got a hint of it was really the demo of the Switch 2. I think Nintendo felt kind of obliged to tell everyone the Switch 2 exists and to just demonstrate gameplay. There was a little bit of Mario Kart, and it just looked like a tech demo because we only saw it for 30 seconds or even less than that. And then when the full game came out, I mean, I think my reaction to it then is similar to my reaction now. And there's been a lot of think pieces, a lot of talk about this very, very fresh game. I think it's a perfect encapsulation of the Switch 2, because the Switch 2 is just kind of the same but refined. And the same goes for Mario Kart Worlds. I do have critiques. It has the unfortunate position of being the successor to Mario Kart 8, which is like a 10-year-old game, but the version most people are familiar with is the Ultimate Edition, the deluxe version on the Switch, with everything.
Yeah, and several years of DLC.
A full extra game of tracks has been added since. They've not all been bangers, but yeah, a huge amount of value. And I think if you're buying this console and game, I fully understand either somebody saying, well, I spent all this money, so it must be worth something. I'm going to definitely justify this purchase by saying it's great. I also can understand if people are just a little bit, is that it about it. But so far, Mario Kart is one of the best game series ever. More of that. If they haven't broken it, or it didn't, it wasn't broken, they didn't need to fix it. I'm jumbling up all my metaphors now, but I've mostly like it. It's still early days. I think it's one of these games where it hasn't felt like a blast of freshness. I think the world concept is perhaps not as amazing as it at first seemed, and maybe we could talk about it a bit more in depth. But as its core gameplay, it's just very refined. It's tight as a drum. I think the character balance is really good, and so far I'm not disappointed. But just to repeat myself, I suppose, if somebody says I expected more, I would also understand that too. How do you feel? Because you also got it the same day.
Yeah, I in very different worlds because the whole world's got it on the same day. So imagine waiting like 3 years to get it back in the old days. I really, really love it, and it is the reason why I went from maybe I should do a Mario podcast one day to I need to talk about Mario every week with someone because
it's definitely a love letter, and that's one of the things I really like about it. A love letter to Mario.
I've seen a lot of people mention that it's like an $80 best of soundtrack to the Mario series with a game attached, which I can agree with a little bit. But this year is the 40th anniversary of Mario. They've not technically announced anything just yet, but they typically announce stuff towards the end of the year because Japan typically celebrates anniversary years like from the date forward, if that makes sense. But this is more than enough for me as like a big celebration of the whole series, Mario and Mario Kart. And I absolutely have criticisms. We'll get onto that in a minute. But just from the perspective of a Super Mario fanatic, I'm very satisfied. And I agree that when I first played the game, I was not immediately blown away. In fact, this is something that's happened a few times to me, both Mario Odyssey and Mario Wonder. When I'm playing through it for the first few days, I have this kind of moment of slight disappointment, which is not that I don't really know where it comes from. It might just be that kind of depression of something that you've been looking forward to so much. It's like, you know, the afternoon on Christmas where you're like, oh, all the presents are open and you're sort of slightly deflated. But with all three of those games, you know, I started loving Mario Odyssey once I'd rolled credits and I was just collecting the moons. I started getting so into Mario Wonder once I'd like unlocked all the worlds and was like properly exploring. And similarly with Mario Kart World, I was sort of enjoying it, but after doing all the cups and actually like kind of getting the work out of the way of like seeing everything for the first time, I've been feeling like the game's got more enjoyable each passing week. And now that is kind of a weird thing to think about because there's no like new content yet. But it's still taking me a long time to unlock everything. And even then, I'm still just really enjoying driving around, looking for the switches. And I've seen some of people complaining that like the switches don't give you much. But to me, the finding the switches and playing a little challenge is the reward. So I'm just really enjoying it. And it's definitely taking me back to, I know nostalgia is the tool of fascism, but
it's the most fascist Mario game. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I know. It's just that it's taking me specifically back to that early Mario where I was truly like believing in the Mario world. I wanted to explore it. I wanted to see how these kind of different kingdoms connected to each other and like picture myself living there.
The only issue is, I mean, I do agree. One of the wonderful things about this world is just like driving around a massively multiplayer open world set in the Mario world, but with just loads of roads. It's just been,
Yes.
you know, tarmacked to living hell, and it's almost like, oh, you just need to go to Bowser's Kingdom just to get away from it all. Oh, I need lava flows, not concrete. Lovely.
I do get all the criticisms, and let's talk a little bit about them because, as we say,
I think, sorry to interrupt, but just before we do love this game. Love this game, but you got to talk about the chaff and the wheat. I got that right, didn't I?
I find it interesting because Mario Kart 8 Vanilla Edition. I think people would be shocked how like bare bones that was when it came out. So I'm kind of interested. Like, I'm pleased that Nintendo aren't the kind of company to announce a game and already tell you about all the DLC they have planned, because then it feels like you're truly buying half a game or something. But at the same time, it does feel like a lot of people are kind of waiting to know if there's long-term plans for this and if things will be added, because while I do think it's deceptively big, because it has less tracks than before, but it does have so many different ways to play them. I do think a lot of people kind of want to know what the plan is.
I feel like the more you describe these people, these normies, the more I feel like I'm agreeing with them. It's like, these sort of mid people.
No. When I say people, I'm including myself in that. I agree. I do think people want to know.
Normally, when I'm thinking about DLC, I do think about it in a slightly negative way, and I sort of like, you didn't feel fit to put that in the game. But there is so much game here, and so I do think I'm expecting DLC. I feel like I've been preconditioned to expect new characters, new courses, new P-switch challenges. But I think that will be just gravy and a way to keep people interested. I'm not sure Nintendo will necessarily charge for them unless they uncover yet another tier to their online scheme. It's like extra plus subscription, which will give you different colors in Animal Crossing and new hats for all the characters.
One theory I think some people have is that Donkey Kong and Pauline only have one additional costume in the game, and Diddy and Dixie and all that stuff are seemingly absent. So I think
we got our conspiracies now. The conspiracy corner.
It could be that there's paid DLC, or it could be that there's some kind of bonus for buying Donkey Kong Bonanza or something. I don't know, because whatever you do, there'll be paywall conversations.
I mean, I'm conscious of the fact that when you start playing Mario Kart World, you unlock loads of things quite quickly, loads of cards, loads of characters, stickers. Still, I'm unlocking loads. But when you're driving around the world in free roam mode and collecting loads of coins, and my brain is like, well, these coins must be being collected somewhere. There must be a point to collecting these coins. And I've just had the horrifying realization while talking with you, maybe there's no point. Maybe they just go. They don't get recorded. I'll be very upset if the coins are being recorded by some like little sheet at the end.
You get stickers that say like, you've collected 3,000 coins, you've collected 5,000 coins, you've done 100 tricks, you've driven a certain amount of miles,
tricks, a million miles.
So I don't know where that goes up to. And interestingly, it took a really long, I still don't know if anyone's like 100%ed the game, because I'm sure they have, but it took a long time for people to do that. And I would say, to start talking about some negatives, I think the way of unlocking stuff could be improved. I think, obviously, from Nintendo's point of view, they like the idea that you might unlock a character like in a year's time or just through chance. But I think the fact that the NPC characters, to unlock them, you have to be ahead of someone using the Kamek item at a specific location, sometimes even just a specific like area of a track. And you also have to make sure that you're not like playing as a character. There's so many little rules about like, because I was trying to unlock them through like cheesing it with like 2 controllers and like trying to do this. And it took me ages to even like get the Kamek item, and then when I used it, I was like slightly off the curb, so it didn't work. And then I tried it again, and
he saw what you were doing.
I know. So from their point of view, they obviously want people to just sort of unlock things through fun. But I do think it's weird with the costumes and the characters and a whole world where you're doing challenges and unlocking things and collecting coins, that kind of none of it's related. Like
Yeah.
you get these tiny little stickers, which are kind of fun. But like to me, I'm viewing the stickers more as like an art gallery. Like they're all
Yeah,
little bits
sticker
of
book.
art. So they're nice
But
to look at.
they don't go on. They go on some cars, but not others. I mean, to mine eyes, like I can't see where the stickers are, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, it's odd.
And we had a conversation off mic about how you unlock a lot of the costumes for these characters. I think that's another thing. The trailers showed people going into costumes, and your mind imagines every single character has so many costumes, but in actuality, a set number do. And as I think you've pointed out, Donkey Kong has literally one alternate costume at the moment. I mean, I can think of multiple ways to dress a gorilla, and they they ignore it all. But
See,
what I was trying to say is that there's going to be a realization, because the way you unlock these costumes is that you get these very close to Happy Meal looking pickups, legally differentiated pickups, but nevertheless you get drive through, and you get a speed boost. But at the moment, in week 3 or whatever of Mario Kart World, you're hoping you're going to unlock a costume, but eventually you will have done all the costumes, and then it's just another speed boost, and it just seems the risk reward thing isn't super duper great.
See, this is actually why I've started enjoying the game a bit more now, because
You have to reinterpret what that power up does.
Yeah, it's kind of, they're off the side and they are an additional boost. And sometimes the boosts are better than like a mushroom. So I've got to a point now where I was like, yeah, like losing races because I wanted to get the food item. And I think one of the reasons why I had that kind of disappointment feeling on the first couple of days is more often than not, I was finding out like, oh, this character doesn't have a cool outfit. Like my experience of collecting this item wasn't, wow, look how amazing Rosalina looks now. It was like, oh, Dry Bones doesn't even have a cowboy hat. Like,
but the flip side, there are some brilliant costumes. I was so happy to see Waluigi as a vampire. I think like Bowser in his biker leathers looks genuinely cool. I've spent so much time taking photos of Bowser on his hog. And
yeah, let's talk about some favorite stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I mentioned earlier the character balance I think is really good. I think there's been some iterations of Mario where some characters are just never played because I found them kind of, again, borderline unusable. I actually feel in my heart deep connection to Wario because we both love farts and gold. But after Mario Kart 64, he was always in like the heavy and slow category, and the driving was such that anytime I dared to get off road, I just crawled to a halt. But for the first time, I'm just having so much fun with all the characters. I think and there's the changing of the carts. I think it's been sort of, one might say simplified, but I think the stats of the carts are such that you could always find a happy medium and then have a really great game with whatever character you're playing as.
Yeah, so obviously the cow seems to be the star of this game. But are there any of these other characters and costumes and carts that you find yourself drawn to?
I think, well, I don't know if this is progressive or sexist, so you got to tell me. But I think when people like Pauline and they have, and not Pauline, yes, Pauline, who's like wearing kind of like just hot leathers, driving around like she's like Uma Thurman in the Avengers, that's classic movie. I just think cool. I mean, someone who's really anti-Zero Suit Samus, that's a whole other cheesecake conversation. But I mean, I've got this Mario poster behind me. I was like, I'm a 42-year-old man And I called my mum and I said, I finally got the poster I wasn't allowed to have when I was 13. And she was like, oh, what was that? Thinking the worst. Got Super Mario poster, didn't I? But all these women on here are princesses. And, you know, princesses are big money. But it almost feels like, and I'm speaking as a straight white man here, but like anytime I see a female character in Mario who's not a princess and just gets to be just basically almost like a role model, or like I'm like a cool sexy bike riding girl, or a politician like Pauline, or whatever Rosalina is.
She doesn't even know. I mean,
but no, well, I was just going to say it's not just the women's I like. It's, I mean, again, I'm just really happy to have my Wario back, because I now can play as Wario Hafford and he looks great. I think Waluigi looks great. I just really like, you know, second banana represent Luigi. Sort of, he got a gondola costume, and the way he's just sort of, it's I will say also just the animations is also what's making me really want to play as all the cast. I feel like the animations were just a bit samey in the other games, but I've never been a fan of the baby characters, but I love playing as the baby characters to get them in their little sailor suits and to see their cutesy poo animations.
Yeah, I've speaking on the women's, from a gay perspective, I find Daisy in her swimsuit and side ponytail absolutely fabulous, and I like to play as her on her little moped driving around town.
I unlocked that last night and I was like, swimsuit? Then my mind needs to, does Mario get a swimsuit?
It's quite scandalizing for a Mario game, I find.
I mean, when you do the Odyssey episode, you could talk all about Mario's nipples. I think that's where they were first introduced. It's like there's two nipple conversations in pop culture: Batman and Mario at the Olympics 2020 something.
I have found that I'm liking, because I like to play as the heavy characters, I'm actually playing a lot of the smaller characters, and I'm a big fan of Bowser Jr.'s Boy Scout outfit. I think he looks absolutely adorable. He's got little stickers or little merit badges on his spikes. But I found that for some bizarre reason, if I play as Peeper, the little ghost,
Peeper's cool.
If I play as Peeper in just the regular wireframe cart, I seem to win Knockout Tour every time. So I'm like kind of scared to not play as him now, and I'm sort of trapped in Peeper land.
Maybe you should cut this bit out, because otherwise it'll show up in another update for balancing the characters.
Well, let's finally talk a bit about these updates, because there actually was an update today, which seems to have made the game worse, because Nintendo saw what we were doing by picking random to get 3-lap courses, and have now changed that. So I kind of want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the price, and whether you think this game is worth $700 or whatever it is.
Right. It's one of the most that's an interesting question with many qualifications. I do think we also need to briefly talk about Hold the World aspect and the 3-track things if we have time. But I think it's telling that I only bought this when I basically decided I wasn't going to go on holiday this year. So I think that is the deciding factor. If you would rather broaden your horizons and enjoy a culture and have actual memories, then
what has Europe got that dry desert doesn't? I don't think Paris has a conch door, you know.
No. I would say, so to caveat this as much as I can, I think if you've never had a Nintendo Switch before, if you've like not been in a Nintendo pool for a while, I would say yes. I mean, I'm talking about the console as a whole here, really, but you can totally if you did get the Nintendo Switch 1, and Nintendo Switch 2 and Mario Kart, and you also get thrown in there Wind Waker, loads of classic Nintendo games on the online service. You've got still going strong sales on the Nintendo eShop. Is totally worth it. And like, people will think you're cool walking down the street with this Nintendo Switch 2 if they don't mug you. It's a more difficult question if you've got a Nintendo Switch 1, and I'm almost inclined to say no. If you're like a hyper super mega Mario fan, then obviously yes. As you mentioned earlier, the music is great. I think the moment Nintendo decide to release the soundtrack to this game on their dedicated music app, there's no point buying the game anymore. But yeah, as I said, this has been my holiday, buying this console and this game, and I don't have any regrets yet. But as I said right at the start, this is a refinement, not by design. It's not making a huge change. I think Nintendo learned from their lesson by going a bit too weird with the Wii U, though obviously it had its fans. But like the predecessors, the Wii, which obviously is the weirdest console of modern times, maybe. So I don't know what I'm talking about there. But yeah, I think I would say if you would struggle to afford this, I wouldn't recommend it right now. I don't think it's going to go down in price, of course, but I just think by the end of this year, or maybe the start of next, maybe after there's a Metroid there, Donkey Kong, a few more third-party titles have come out. It's such a superbly designed console, and though it's not an OLED screen, I think it's very bright and pretty. But yeah, if you would struggle in any way to justify getting this, I wouldn't say now. I'd start saving now, because I remember with my Switch 1, I spent such a long time. It's so funny to think, but I think I got a Switch 1 like 5 years ago, and I was hesitant because I thought a Switch 2 announcement or a Super Switch announcement was like imminent, and then I got like 5 years play out of it. But yeah, again, if you got the money to spend, and if you're a hyper fan, probably yes. But like I said, I had a special set of circumstances where I decided that I didn't want to miss out, basically.
You just wanted to talk briefly about the world aspect, and I think the thing I find interesting is, when if you buy a Switch 2 and you already have a Switch 1, essentially your Switch 2 comes loaded with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So I think the idea behind this game being they had to do something different is very commendable. I never would have predicted they would have made an open world Mario Kart game ever. But that does lead to another slight point of contention, which is that while the tracks themselves seem quite fun and everything, you rarely seem to be able to play them, because most of the game seems about driving to these tracks and doing a little lap.
When are we getting to the fireworks factory, the game?
When are we getting to Toad's Factory? So I do think what's interesting is that I roll this a little bit into the hopes for the future, because I kind of think the update, maybe this is me, maybe this is cope or whatever people call it, but I kind of feel like down the road there probably is an update, which is this is 3 laps version. It's just right now, with the game being released, they want you to see the world. They want to sell it on this unique new element. But yeah, maybe they won't, and maybe we'll keep having to find ways to hack playing the actual tracks with our friends.
Yeah. So again, conscious of the fact that by the time you're watching this, things might have changed, but at this moment in time, I think one of the biggest things to get over for a lot of players is that ever since the first game, you'll do laps around a track like a race in game, but now there's sort of, you go from track to track, and often I think a big issue some people have, and I completely empathize really as well. I'm not sure how sold I am on it, but you go to one sort of designed course and then just like a long road to another course. And I do love the sort of Mad Max Fury Road stylings of this. I think that's quite cool, but it, I would say, consciously really changes how you use some items. It always, I think people have cited the banana skin, where you'd place that in a bunch of mystery boxes for the next lap to get people the next lap. But no, you kind of, a lot of things are single use now. And one thing people have done to get around this in online player is if you selected random tracks, it would force you into the 3 loop system. It's a huge change. I'm still not. I think what you're also alluding to is I don't know, having not been able to play them that much, I don't know if any of the tracks which you do 3 laps of are bangers. And it's again, I feel like it's really hard it's unfair to compare it to Mario Kart 8, but because I feel like I've spent more time with them. But there's a lot of tracks I like aesthetically, but in terms of pleasure or tension, I'm not sure yet if I would put any tracks above some Mario Kart 8 ones.
Yeah,
but early days.
I don't mind the long stretches because they do make them fun. They are chaotic. It's just that I feel like I'm playing them far more than the actual tracks themselves. And I haven't really got to know the tracks too well. And even in Knockout Tour, you're like driving through them sometimes. You like see a little hint of a castle, but then you're just like driving on past. So
it's when Nikito shows up and you finally got to the good bit and it's the final lap. And it's kind of like you're being a kid in his playtime, and then there's a whistle and you're like, oh, I'm just coming up with this weird Harry in school scenario now. But yeah, it's just like, oh, it's almost over. I was just getting into it.
That's another reason I felt slightly disappointed when I first went through all the cups, because even in what I find bizarre is that there's Knockout Tour, but then also the Grand Prix, you're driving to each course, which seems like a weird choice. It seems like they should be more separated. And with all of those tracks, like, you kind of don't get the sense of a grand finale when, you know, you're driving down this kind of mountainous path, you get onto a course, and then it's just one lap, and you feel a bit like, oh, that's the end. It is bizarre, and it does take getting used to. I think some people maybe have like written off the game too quickly because it's different. But
I think there's some adjustments needs to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh no!
So this is our quick fire question moment. I'm going to ask you a bunch of very quick fire questions, and you have to answer them as quickly as you can. So number 1, if you were a superstar in Mario 64, how would I get you?
Get me?
Yes.
Well, I've always been a fan of when you're I mean, it's a Mario Kart World thing. I like chasing something, like being that rabbit or being, is it Nabbit or something? So you would chase me, but I'm also quite unfit, so it'd be a very easy star to get. You just be puffing and puffing Harry.
Question number 2. Which Mario Kart track would you most like to live on?
Well, I thing is, I know it's new, but I love Boo Cinema. But I also think this is one of these tracks where I wish there was more of. It's kind of a simple loop, so it was more about I'd want to live on it to explore it. I want to see if they've got any reels of like Hellraiser up there or something. Yeah, I just love a spooky cinema.
Question number 3. Which insane deep cut Mario character would you most like to see added to Mario Kart World?
Well, since I did a podcast about movies based on video games, I think it's probably fair to have the entire Mario family from that animated movie in there. I want Uncle Tom, the other uncle. I know Joe DiMaggio does one of them. Just the whole Mio Day family in their tracksuits and stereotypes.
That means Nintendo would have to add Charles Martinet back to the game, and that's never going to happen. I thought you were going to say Fiona Shaw from the live-action movie.
Oh, well, no, no game can contain her power, her Fiona Shawness.
Question number 4. Who would you cast as Cal in the next Mario Brothers movie?
Adrian Brody. Specifically Adrian Brody.
Oh, sorry.
What the hell is this shit? As he says in Grand Budapest Hotel. I think he's got great comedy chops. I know Cal would denote it being a female, but I just think I want to see Adrian Brody, angry Adrian Brody, being in more things. I think actually he would just be in a cow costume in this sort of inserted Minecraft movie style into this animated movie.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be ranking people, but you completed 4 questions. And I'll put you on some kind of leaderboard. What's quick fire? But you're currently at the top of the leaderboard. I'll just say that. So that is about wrapped up today's Super Mario moments. I want to thank you for joining me for our level 1. This is a massive game, and there's so much to talk about. We went longer than I expected us to, and there's still so much left in Mario Kart World. So I'd love to have you back one day.
It'll be a pleasure once we like Mario World a little bit more or less, depending. That's how emotions are.
It seems like everything online these days, people love it, and then the next week someone decides we all hated it all the time, didn't we? Would you like to plug anything or yourself? How can people find you?
So I'm Only Man Who Can on most of the things, mostly on Blue Sky, Instagram, not the other place. But there's still 151 episodes of games on film to listen to and all the things. Hamish is in a whole bunch of them. But
there's at least 3 episodes about Mario.
Yeah, I think we did 2 on the live action Mario movie, 1 on the animated one. But there's some really interesting Mario curios as well, which is worth checking out. And I'm sure would show up in one of Hamish's upcoming episodes. Other than that, I'm working on a horror novel. Can't really talk about that. So that's kind of leading, isn't it? But yeah, love, as you can probably see, big Mario fan, big part of my life. So it's just lovely to talk about that happy Italian man.
Well, thank you for joining. I'm at Hamish Steele everywhere that you can find me. Blue Sky and Instagram's where I hang out most. I have a book out in August called Go Man Champion of the Earth. If you could pre-order that would be wonderful. But thank you for joining me. I do have a Patreon, which is just still Hamish Steele at the moment. I plan on releasing some bonus episodes, including a read-along of a Mario Choose Your Own Adventure novel, where you'll get to choose where we go. But at the moment,
into the spike pit or over the spike pit.
So yes, thank you for joining me, and thank you for coming to the very first Super Mario moment. See you soon. Bye.